Today I'm going to show you how to make easy cinnamon buns using a bread machine. I use a 2-pound bread machine. You can use any kind of bread machine you have. This recipe will work in all as long as it has a dough setting. Bear with me, this is my second YouTube video. I'm working on getting a tripod, but until then you'll have to deal with shaky hands. So we start out by adding 3 tablespoons of sugar. I like to spread it out evenly on the bottom. 1 cup of warm milk. I usually put it in the microwave on high for 65 seconds. Every microwave's different, so just keep checking it. You want it to be just above lukewarm. The sugar will dissolve in the milk as it goes. Next, we're going to add the flour. So you want to do always the sugar, the wet on the bottom, and then the flour as a base, and add your dry ingredients on top. This recipe calls for 1 1/3 cups of flour. I just use an all-purpose flour. You can use bread flour. I've always found that this recipe works just as well with all-purpose. So we're going to go ahead and put the flour in. So I've got 2 cups here. Make sure you get the flour as evenly spread around as you can. There we go. Yep, perfect. And then I'm going to come back and add my 1 1/3 cup. Make sure that the milk is totally covered so that it can't reach up and touch the yeast. You don't want anything to touch your yeast and salt before it needs to. There we go. Now we're just going to spread this out a little, pack it down, make sure I get the edges. And then what I do is I make 2 wells. I make one for the salt, one for the yeast to make sure that they don't touch each other as best I can. So usually bread machine recipes, they call for a liquid, your sugar, and then your flour, yeast, salt, and then some kind of a fat. So what we'll do first is we'll put our yeast in. This recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of yeast. So we put that in there. And then we're going to put in our salt. I just use regular table salt. Half a teaspoon of salt goes into this recipe. And I'll just show you my yeast here as well. I forgot to. I just use a Fisherman's bread machine yeast. So we're just going to go ahead and put our salt in. Hoping the quality of these videos will get much better as I get a tripod and some better lighting. A little barbaric at the moment. Okay, we've got our salt and our yeast. Now we're going to go ahead and add our margarine. You can use butter. I always just use margarine, it's cheaper. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of margarine. I like to put it away from the salt and the yeast as well. Got a little bit in there, but that's okay. There's a little bit left. It can stick even to the side of the pan. It's going to collect it anyways. Those are all of our ingredients that we need to put in here now. So the next step is that we're just going to pop it into the bread machine. There we go, we've got it set in here. Every bread machine's different, so you have to go by your bread machine's user manual. What you basically want to do is just select a dough cycle. So it's 9 on mine, an hour and 30 minutes. Our dough is all done. So we just take it out of here. The bread machine did all the work. We're going to lay it onto a floured surface and get both sides of it there. As you can see, it's got a nice press into it when you use your fingers. Springy, it's very good. And we're just going to start rolling it. Roll back and forth. You want it long, kind of shaped like a rectangle, just like this. Perfect. You want the sides to be, about this thick here. You don't want it to be super, super thick. It's going to rise. So, it's easily going to double its size. So what I do is I take margarine, the back of the spoon, and I just do a nice thin layer of margarine all over the top. Make sure you get all the sides. It's going to make your brown sugar stick. I'm going to create that gooiness to the inside of your cinnamon buns. So don't be afraid to use it. Make sure every piece is covered. Again, you can use butter. I find it much cheaper to use margarine. I use margarine in most of my baking. Now what we do is we take brown sugar. It's kind of hard to specify an amount as each cinnamon roll can get rolled out differently. Take the brown sugar and make a nice layer over top of your butter. Kind of try to pack it down there. Again, you want it to go right to the edges. You want every little piece of that margarine covered up with brown sugar. I need a little bit more here. Right to the edge. Get it nice and even in here. Perfect. Just a little bit there. And then the next part we're going to do is we're going to add the cinnamon. I sprinkle the cinnamon just on top, the same as the brown sugar. You want to layer over top of everything. And then a nice cinnamon taste throughout. So you make sure that it's all the way to the edges. As even as you can. A little bit more. It doesn't have to be thick on there. It just needs to be able to cover all the brown sugar so that when you get a bite, you're not getting brown sugar, you're getting brown sugar and cinnamon. If you've ever bitten anything with too much cinnamon, it can become unsweet very, very quickly. So you want to make sure that the ratio is right. Now that everything's done, we're going to start to roll it. So you're just going to start little from the side, gently pinch, roll and pinch, roll and pinch, roll and pinch. Roll it all the way to the edge. And I'm just pinching as I'm rolling here. It's very important. Don't squeeze it too hard, just enough to make sure that it's holding. Here we go. Roll it. I pack it down at the ends. I kind of hold the end and push it forwards. As I'm pinching, that allows you to get every little piece of that roll cut. So now what we're going to do, and this depends on how big you want your cinnamon rolls. I cut mine about this thick. Gives me some pretty decent sized buns. You'll see them. You can adjust when you see my finished product. The smaller the cinnamon rolls, you can adjust the width and the height of how you're rolling that dough. I like mine a little bit bigger. My boys are teenagers. They don't appreciate small anything. So we're just going to start stacking these into this pan. I do layers of 3. I use a glass pan. I always put parchment down. It saves on cleaning. It saves on sticking. It is just my best friend. I like to leave a gap in between the cinnamon buns, as you can see, because when we put them to proof, they're going to double in size. So give them a little bit of room. So we've proofed the cinnamon buns here, and we've popped them in the oven. This is them done. Nice and golden brown. They cooked for 18 minutes at 375. So right now I'm just going to put some butter on them, margarine, again, just to keep this top soft. And this is done while they're hot, right out of the oven. It softens the bread on top, doesn't make them too hard to cut. Now we're going to do the icing. Icing is 3 cups of icing sugar, half of a cup of butter, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and 2 tablespoons of milk. You can use whole milk or 2%. Just give it a good mix. Stir it until it's smooth. What I like to do is have my cinnamon buns cooling while I make the icing. And then just as they're still hot, I like to put a thin layer of icing over top of everything. It allows the icing to get really down in the crevices. You can choose to put icing on top. There's enough icing in this recipe to leave extra. So you can, I just spread it all over. Just like that. Most of the time it's sweet enough with what I put on there. It still keeps the cinnamon bun soft, just like the butter does. And allows for that nice sweet bite all the way to the bottom. Perfect. This is them, and you're all done. I'm going to show you what they look like here. We just cut a piece. There's one. You can see the size of them to a small plate. Again, if you want to change them to mini cinnamon buns, you just make your roll thinner and longer. Thicker buns, you make it thicker and shorter, and then they'll change the size of your cinnamon bun. So we're just going to cut this open to show you the inside. Nice and gooey all the way through the middle. Cooked just perfectly. And you can see where that icing is coming down into the middle. Thanks everyone for watching.